Hello world, Cossy here with part 2 of this week's Geek Movie News. If you haven't seen part 1, then you should click that link there, pop back and watch the first part of this week's Geek Movie News, and then come back, because there'll be a link at the end of that video to come back to this one. And obviously we're going to start off, as you can see, with some news about Beetlejuice. Now, it seems that Warner Brothers are looking at making a sequel to Tim Burton's 1988 Beetlejuice movie. This obviously is not new to a lot of people. This is something that's been rumoured for a long time. In fact, in the last 23 years, we've seen quite a lot of people actually try and write a script treatment for a movie that was going to be called Beetlejuice in Hawaii. People like Kevin Smith, for example, have been involved in writing script treatments for this sequel that has never ever happened. But now, due to Warner Brothers partnering up, shall we say, with a production company called Cat Smith Productions, this is looking like a distinct possibility. That's the words that came out of Warner Brothers this week. Now, for me, this is great news. I was a huge fan of this movie as a kid. I thought it was one of the best movies ever. In fact, I actually taped it off the television when it was first on, and somewhere in the house I've actually got that, as well as the fact I've got it on DVD. It's a brilliant movie. It is very, very funny, very creepy, I thought, as a kid, but in a good way. And yeah, I'd love to see a second Beetlejuice. I'd love to see what's happened to the character over the last 23 years, and maybe, just maybe, that's finally going to happen. Next up, some news not about a specific movie really, but about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's finished his political duties and Arnie is ready to return to Hollywood. Hooray! Happy days! Now, his first starring role is going to be in a western, and that's going to be called The Last Stand. He'll be playing a sheriff of a town that is under attack from a drug cartel, and yeah, he's locked in. He is going to be starring in this movie. Now, no news at the moment on who's going to be playing the main bad guy, the leader of the cartel. But apparently, and this is the rumour going around quite a lot on the internet at the moment, they are going to lock in Peter Stormare as the right-hand man of the leader of the drug cartel, which is great. He's made to be a villain. Anyone who's seen him in other things knows he can genuinely be very, very menacing and creepy, and yeah, he's a perfect villain. Bit of a side note, if MODOK does appear in the second Captain America movie, something that I mentioned I think last week or the week before, Stormare is the man who will play MODOK, which is brilliant. He's perfect, and I really want to see MODOK in Captain America 2 or 3. Winter Soldier and MODOK, Winter Soldier and MODOK, please. They're the two storylines that you should be going with, you guys at Marvel, who obviously are watching this right now. Sticking a little bit with some Arnie news and moving on to The Expendables 2. Now, some casting news. Arnie and Bruce Willis will both be reprising their roles from the first Expendables movie. This won't be just small cameos this time, though. Apparently they're going to be given a much larger and important role in the sequel to The Expendables. Rumour has it that we will possibly see a Stallone versus Schwarzenegger standoff, and it could turn out that Willis was behind organising it and could even be the main villain of the entire piece, which would mean Stallone and Schwarzenegger would have to, I don't know, team up against him? Hey, that would be a fantastic idea as far as I'm concerned. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that really does happen, but they're the rumours that are coming out at the moment. Second piece of casting news, and this is big for anyone who grew up watching action movies. Chuck Norris and Jean-Claude Van Damme are going to be in The Expendables 2. Happy days. I mean, they are perfect. Chuck Norris, Van Damme, teaming up with Stallone and Jet Li and all the other guys from the first movie. I mean, Dolph Lundgren. This is fantastic. This is action movie gold. The only thing I can think is, why weren't these two involved in the first movie? Especially, Norris. He's got such a cult following, and so's Van Damme nowadays. But yeah, why weren't they involved in the first? But glad to see they're involved in this sequel. And yeah, this is going to be a perfect beer and popcorn movie as far as I'm concerned, and I haven't seen any of it yet. So there's your casting news for The Expendables 2. Sticking with action movies, and as you can probably tell from that picture behind me, we're going to talk a little bit about this Riddick sequel that Vin Diesel's been working on. Apparently it is getting the go-ahead from Universal Pictures. I'm excited. I am a big fan of this crazy sci-fi criminal that is Richard B. Riddick, and the universe that sort of sprawls around him. He's not a part of the universe, he's kind of the centre of the universe, and sure, Vin Diesel very cleverly made sure that was what was going to happen with the character. It's going to go into production very soon, not a date yet, but it'll be starting to film in Canada, which is where they filmed the majority of the last Riddick movie, so that's going forward very, very soon. But more to the point, the movie is going to get apparently a solid R rating. That's what they're going for. For those of you who don't know, R rating in the US is like an 18 rating here, whereas here it doesn't have a massive impact because most cinemas play any movies. In the US, a lot of cinemas will not carry R-rated movies, so to see a major studio like Universal get behind a project which is clearly an R-rated science fiction movie is a gamble, but a gamble that could very well pay off, and I'm a big fan of Universal for doing this. It's going to cost a lot of money, because sci-fi movies always do, and there's a possibility it might not make that back, but they're going to gamble on it. Fantastic. Vin Diesel's come out and said that, looking at early storyboards and early concept art, like the art you can see behind me, he's very, very, very excited about this. This is like his baby. This is his pet project. This is something he loves to be involved in. And hopefully, in the not too distant future, Richard B. Riddick is going to be back on the big screen. Okay, you might be confused by that image. Isn't that the Monopoly Man? Yes, it is, because Hasbro are pushing ahead with making a big budget film adaptation of Monopoly, the board game we all grew up with and I'm sure loved. Well, I loved it because I was very good at it. I used to buy everything and then loved to make my family poor, and I'm sure that's what it taught most of us. Universal Studios have passed on the project. They were originally involved in making the Monopoly movie. They've now passed on it. But Hasbro Toys and Ridley Scott, who's set to direct and produce this movie, they are pushing ahead with it anyway. They're looking for a new studio. They've just hired some writers to get involved. Those writers are Ed Wood, Scott Alexander, and Larry Kasavensky. They're the three people who will be involved in writing the scripts to this. Not very much is known about what the plot will be, but obviously it's going to loosely be linked to the board game Monopoly that we've all played as children. And yeah, Hasbro, they're really pushing ahead with these film adaptations of board games and toys. I know that they are trying to push through stuff like Cluedo, which is in the US, if you watch in the US, what you call Clue, we in the UK call Cluedo. Also Stretch Armstrong, and a rumour that they're trying to get a big budget adaptation of Magic the Gathering made, which that spiked my interest playing Magic for, well, probably the last 14, 15 years of my life. I'd really like to see what they can do with all of the mythos behind it and the magic elements if they're going to make this into a movie. Just have to wait and see, but Monopoly, it's getting pushed. Ridley Scott, obviously, and Hasbro are pushing for this to be made. Not got a studio yet. Once I know any more about it, I will let you guys know, as always. Finally this week, some news about the 300 prequel, 300 The Battle of Artemesia. Now, there's going to be some cameos in this new movie. Two really important cameos of characters from Zack Snyder's original 300 movie, and that is that Lena Headey and Jared Butler will both cameo in this prequel. They will only have small roles. It would just be a nice nod to the fans of the first movie and to give some sort of link between the two. And I can't see this being a bad thing. I think, giving a nod to your audience who made the first movie such a big success is good. Linking the two makes sense. If you're going to have this as a prequel, at least have some sort of links to what's come before it. So yeah, brilliant, really good idea. As I mentioned a couple of weeks back, Noah Murrow, who's directing it, he apparently was behind this idea of making sure we have some cameos from characters from the first movie, which is set in the future, based on the script of this new prequel, appearing in Battle of Artemesia. So there we have it, guys. That was all of this week's Geek Movie News. If you haven't seen the first part, if you didn't click out at the start, I'll pop the link up there so you can click back right now and watch it. If you haven't seen last week's Geek Movie News, I will click a link up there and you can click on that and go back and see what you've missed. As always, like button is there, go and click it, subscribe, comment, favourite, send to all your friends, post on your social media sites, become a fan of me on Facebook, drop down box, there's a link there, click on it, like it, you'll find out what's going on in the world of Geek Movie News and when my new videos are coming out before everyone else. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, au revoir.